giving us?
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, thank you.
So hopefully, if you have any problems or questions about it, just call me.
Yeah.
Okay?
No, I saw that JBS was out there last week fencing it off.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if you ever saw it, but it's
On that side.
yeah, that's being done.
Wandering aimlessly. Why do I have a laptop? Have I always had a laptop? Oh. Okay. 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 I don't think you're on. No. There you are.
Check, check. I'd like to call to order the October 27th, 2020 public hearing for the City of Tampa's Barrio Latino Commission. Welcome, everyone. I'm John Thompson, Chair of the Commission. What is that?
Someone's phone's ringing.
That's awesome. If you are here to present a project, you have limited time to make your presentation, so we suggest being thorough but concise. When coming to the microphone, you will need to identify yourself and your relationship to the project. The commissioners will not ask any questions during your presentation. Your project should be presented in the following order: site plan, elevations, architectural details, and wall sections. Staff will present staff report. We will then ask for public comment. Following your presentation, the commissioners will be asking questions in the same order as the presentation. Please state and spell your name clearly if you're here to speak for or against a project. Your time will be limited to 3 minutes, so take some time now to summarize your comments because 3 minutes goes by very quickly. Following public comment, the applicant will have 5 minutes for rebuttal. The public hearing will then be closed. The only comments which will be allowed after public hearing is closed will be in response to any questions from the commissioners. The commissioners will then discuss the case and will make their decision based on the City Ordinance Chapter 27 of City Zoning Code, the design guidelines, the Secretary of Interior Standards, design review comments, and the testimony given at this public hearing. The BLC can only act on items that are within our specific jurisdictional responsibility. Owner agents are independently responsible to obtain any appropriate permits and/or other approvals. If you haven't already done so, please silence your cell phones. And we'll introduce commissioners starting on my left, please.
Good morning, I'm Eric Schiller.
Jose Chalaz.
Liz Welch.
Very good. And we also have with us Dennis Fernandez, Ron Vila, Beverly Jusak, and Kamaria Pettis-Mackel. So what we'll do is we have the opportunity now to get into the reading of the minutes for September 22nd of 2020. I need a motion to approve the minutes. So moved. Need a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Meetings are passed. Announcements.
Good morning, Commissioners. Dennis Fernandez, Architecture Review and Historic Preservation Manager. Welcome to today's public hearing. I do have the administrative approvals to enter into the record. I would provide those to the clerk. And I did want to thank everyone who was able to attend the online workshop this past Wednesday. I thought it was, went off pretty well for our first virtual workshop. We will be making that, we did record it, we will be making that available to anyone else that cares to review it. We'll send you out a link for that as soon as we can figure out the technology to do so. Other than that, I think we're ready to move on into the agenda.
Thank you, Dennis.
Good morning, Kamaria Pettis-Mackel from the City Attorney's Office. Will the commissioners please state on the record whether or not they have any conflicts of interest regarding any of the items that are listed on the agenda? Seeing no comments, will the commissioners please state on the record whether or not they have had any ex parte communication regarding any of the items that are listed on the agenda? No? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Ron Vila. I'm staff with Historic Preservation. Moving down the agenda under continuations, there is one reflected on today's agenda. It's BLC 20-167. There's multiple addresses attached to that request, which is 1705 North 16th Street and 1704 North 17th Street. The request is to continue to the December 15th public hearing, 2020 at 9 a.m., and that was continued by the agent. If we could get a motion for that, please.
Okay, we need a motion.
So moved?
A second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. And continue.
At this time, we're ready for the swear-in. Everybody that wishes to testify, including staff, please stand up and raise your right hand. Ms. Juzak will swear us in.
You solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you'll be providing this morning is the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do. Moving to the first case, which is BLC 20-165. The address is 1718 East Columbus Drive. Currently, it's a vacant parcel with a zoning classification of YC2. The request this morning is for a single-family residence. It's a 2-story structure with a 1-story accessory structure attached to that request. Going through the photo essay. Thank you.
Do I have to do something to get my screen?
Of your computer's not, the monitor's not on?
Uh-uh. Usually it just pops up, and I don't touch it.
Give us a minute. Is it up?
No, hers is not on.
I could do the photo presentation from the podium if it makes it a little easy while they work on this.
But she won't be able to.
I can't see anything. I have nothing.
The screen down here is working. If you
Yeah,
want.
there's a couple other ones that aren't working. But
The one right here is perfect too.
Is everybody else okay?
we can see the commission. We don't have anything on the Elmo yet.
How about now?
I can move.
There's-
No?
There's no exhibits.
I think they're gonna have to switch to the camera angle for
Okay. I'll move down here.
There we go. There we go. We have exhibits.
Let's get situated.
Thank you.
And don't forget,
Okay, moving forward with the photo presentation. We'd like to start with the Sanborn map. Can everybody hear me?
We can. I'm not
The
sure if
mic's
it's on the
not on.
microphone.
did you,
Check, check.
did you flip the switch?
Check. Once again, we'd like to start with the Sanborn map. This is reflecting the fabric from 1929. The property in question is highlighted in the shaded green area. This was East Michigan back in '29, which is currently Columbus Drive. It is an interior parcel, and you see how the structures line up with the abutting structures. There is an alley to the rear, which is indicated on this overhead shot. Once again, the property in question is in the green box. It's a deep parcel with alley access, so that's going to be part of the request this morning. If you look on Columbus Drive as well, there are some parallel spots that aid the community in this particular environment to add additional parking spots for the properties to use. This is looking from Columbus Drive back into the parcel. There is the parking spots that I spoke about. There's the granite curbing, the sidewalk, and then you get into the parcel. Just to the west, you have a period structure. You can note the setback on this and then the elevation from grade that the agent will talk about. This is a duplex. To the east, you have parking for the commercial property across the street that I'll show a couple pictures of. Directly across the street, you have another period structure. Some street shots, okay, to get a sense of presence. The property in question is over here, the empty parcel. This is the abutting structure that I showed to the west, and then you see the vocabulary looking to the west down Columbus Drive, turning around, looking down Columbus Drive towards the east. The parking that I showed is additional parking for this commercial structure here. That is also a contributing structure. Looking from the alley back into the property towards Columbus Drive. And just to conclude with a couple of shots of the current condition of the alley, property that we'll be looking at today is over here. So they're going to come in from the cross street and use the alley. The positive of this is that the alley will come back online and to aid, some of the abutting structures and to have a better condition of what the grid looked like back in the day as well. That concludes the photo presentation. At this time, I have Mr. Gibbons address the board. Thank you.
Thanks, Ron.
Good morning, Commissioners. Joe Gibbons, Gulf Bay Builders. I'm the applicant and the builder of the project. The parcel in question is at 1718 East Columbus Drive. As Ron mentioned, there is an existing alley now that we plan to improve to the standards that the city has provided some new recommendations. This is the parcel looking from Columbus Drive to the north. This is the parcel here. Looking east. Looking west. The parcel is back over here. This is the structure at 1716 East Columbus. We have confirmed that the finished floor elevation of this existing structure is at 32 inches above finished grade, which we plan to match with our proposed structure, and also have our front porch lined up with this front porch here. This is the alley looking west. This is 18th Street here. As you can tell from the current condition, it's not drivable. Moving into the site plan, the existing structure at 1716 East Columbus is here with their front porch, which we plan to match here. We're going to center the proposed single-family home on the lot. There is a detached one-car accessory structure that will be accessed from the alley. 18th Street is here. During the HDRC meeting, we were asked to bring this garage forward towards the house to allow additional backup space here, which we've done. The AC unit is in the back corner of the structure here, which we plan to provide some landscape buffer here so you can't see it from Columbus Drive. We have a new entry feature here to the front porch that kind of matches the one to the west at 1716. It's a 4-foot wide porch, or I'm sorry, 4-foot wide walkway leading up to the front porch, which is 8 feet in depth. And then we also have a walkway from the detached accessory structure coming into the rear entry of the home. As you saw the photos of the existing alleyway, it's unimproved at this point, and this is a document that was provided to me earlier this year that was effective of February 2020. Basically, in policy number 2 is new construction for single-family, semi-detached duplexes. The dwelling proposes to utilize, if the dwelling proposes to utilize a public alleyway for vehicular access, shall not require to pave an unimproved alley, provided that the existing alley surface meets the criteria of unpaved alleys listed on section 5, which over in section 5 is unimproved alley surface material shall be provide low potential for losses due to wind, traffic, and water erosion, be compacted and properly graded, and meet a minimum of optional base group. What I intend to do is obviously clear the alleyway and grade it, clear these 2 trees which we had discussed in the HDRC meeting, clear all of this out here now, and then provide a road base leading up to the western edge of our property, which is just beyond this vehicle that was parked here, as well as improve this apron here. The sidewalk is currently cracked, and it is my intent to replace the sidewalk the width of the alleyway here. Moving on to the proposed structure, it's a single-family home, 2-story. Finished floor elevation will be to match the existing structure next door at 1716 East Columbus Drive, which is a 32-inch finished floor elevation. We have exposed soffit with 24-inch rafter tails, some barge rafters, 6-inch hardy artisan trimmer on the windows, a historic sill, crown molding. The exposed soffit will be a 1x6 V groove, and we plan to continue that as well down here on the covered entry porch. This kind of gives a little side elevation from looking west. Shows the exposed rafter tails, which are 24-inch. The fascia here will be a 2x8. Shows our some more detailing of the barge rafters. We will have to, because of the finished floor elevation at 32-inch, incorporate a railing on the porch, as well as a walkway up to the front porch railing. It will have a stem wall, which will have a smooth sand finish stucco, and then brick columns. This is looking on the west edge. This kind of shows the brick columns, and then this is a smooth finished stucco. Shows more of the rafter tails, crown, the 6-inch artisan that we picture frame, as well as the windowsill. This is the east elevation here, again showing the stem wall, smooth finished stucco finish, and then the brick piers. This is the rear entrance, which staff has mentioned they'd like to incorporate something where the existing 12-inch band board that separates the first and second floor. And I'd mentioned to Ron I would be open to raising this roof up, so this roof line, which is right here, will match the bottom of this. So basically this would come up, and so this 12-inch band board can wrap around the entire 3 sides of the rear entry porch. That would be the same thing over on this side. This 12-inch band board would just come and wrap around. So basically this whole thing is lifted up, and then it would just die into the side of the rear entry porch. This is a finished product that shows some of our detailing of the crown, the 6-inch artisan, the band boards between to separate the first and second floor, exposed rafter tails, barge rafters. This gives a little more detail of our window treatment and surrounds. This is a Therma-Tru craftsman door that we would propose to use on the front elevation. The rear would be a single light full glass door to allow more light into the kitchen area. This shows the typical apron with the 6-inch artisan trim, the crown molding. Typically we wrap the columns like this with a hardy, and then a 1x4 and a 1x6 as the base. This shows the beadboard ceiling porch. This proposed structure does have a detached garage, which is very similar to this one. And we continue that exposed rafter tails, with the 1x6 beadboard, 1x8 fascia. We do a band board to separate the, as it turns into the gable here. The garage door, we continue that craftsman look here. This shows a little bit of the detail of how we do to give it the appearance of piers, smooth finished stucco finish, exposed rafter tails. And that concludes my presentation.
That's everything?
Yes.
Thank you. Ron Vila, staff with Historic Preservation. Staff's finding that this application is consistent with the Ybor City Design Guidelines. We reviewed the plans that were submitted to us on October 7th, 2020. We had some conditions attached to that review. Mr. Gibbons did indicate that he was going to provide some landscaping to screen the mechanicals on the east side of the property. He did provide the dimensions from finished floor level to be consistent with the structure to the west. I don't believe he discussed the front yard setback from the property line, so that's outstanding information. I'd like to have a further discussion about the rear door that's forced in there, and we could discuss a solution if we're seeking final approval today. Lighting, hardware, and the color palette, I believe, was omitted from the presentation as well. I know he has that information, and I believe through the question and answers that could be discussed. That concludes my review at this time, and I'll be here to answer any questions.
Thanks, Ron. We have the opportunity for public comment if anybody's here to speak for or against the project. Seeing none for this particular project. We can move into questions from the commissioners. Start on my left.
I have none, thank you.
One quick question. Staff notes make reference to an additional window opening on the right elevation. Was that addressed?
This is the right.
And was staff looking for an additional window on the ground floor?
I could comment on that. What staff was looking for was an additional window on the second floor towards the front. Window placement prior to air condition was very important to get the ventilation inside of these homes. As we see, air condition come online and more new construction, the elimination of windows for budgetary reasons are something that we see on a daily basis. What staff was looking for was an additional window on the second floor towards the front porch. Prior to air condition was very important to get the ventilation inside of these homes. As we see, air condition come online and more new construction, the elimination of windows for budgetary reasons are something that we see on a daily basis.
We're in the matrix.
Yeah.
We get
So,
Front porch.
It appears that the staff's comment was that they would like to see additional window. I'm assuming behind where the palm tree is in this rendering.
That's correct.
Can you address that issue, please?
This would be this is the area that Ron is speaking of, and I would not have an issue with adding an additional window here.
Excuse me just for 1 second. I don't know if staff can I don't know if his voice is getting recorded. Did you turn off the microphone or is it still on? Sir, Mr. Gibbons, can you?
Halloween ramblings.
Yeah.
It appears that if you didn't want, I understand the need for perhaps leaving a long wall, for the bed placement, but it looks like you could put a window in the corridor portion of the bedroom, and that would satisfy an additional, opening on the second floor.
Sure. I think, a window placed in this area here as you walk into the bedroom, and that way it would still give this wall for headboard. So a window in this area would be fine.
Thank you.
And then, so you touched on the door, but you go over the general color palette, what lighting you use, and would be the similar hardware to what you had shown in your previous project as well?
Sure. At this point, we haven't finally decided on the color palette. Typically, once we're in permitting is when I will deal with Ron and staff, and we'll put together a color palette and submit to Ron and staff for approval prior to starting construction. But at this point, we're thinking of some gray tones. They have added additional colors. So at this point, we're thinking of some grays with red. I believe it's called English Pub that we've used before. In fact, it's on this. This is the English Pub here. The front door is the Craftsman door, which it's not, what we're proposing is not black, but it's something that has been added to the new color palette that we've used and had great success with. Going back to the rendering, so we're thinking of the body as being this gray with white trim, the red brick. The smooth stucco would match, would be in white to keep it that. We typically like to do, lighter colors. We build to the National Green Building Standards, so we try to always do a lighter color palette.
Very good, thank you.
Okay. Getting back to the window alignments, can you show us the elevation from the north side? I guess that's the rear elevation.
Yeah, I don't have one of these pretty colored ones done for the rear.
Just the elevation would be fine.
Yeah, so this is the rear right here.
Okay. In looking at this, I think that staff has brought up the notion of, and you've addressed it in your presentation, of raising the porch covering there to be concurrent with that particular datum line from the first to second floor, and kind of making that trim go around it. I think that that can be worked out. The portion that flies off of the building a little bit there is how much does that come off the face of the building?
This is 4 feet, so an additional 2, so 6 feet.
Looking at it from the front, as if you were coming from the garage to the building. Yeah, there. That dimension that it comes off the building.
In the width?
Yes. And would that just be the roof itself with a little soffit, or are we going to have the rest of the fascia would return to the building, and then you'd have the roof fly off the side there?
I would return the fascia back in, so continue that 12-inch band board around.
Right. So it comes around and goes around. So we would only be seeing the roof itself.
Yes.
Project out a little bit.
Correct.
Okay. And back to that particular elevation on the north side. Yeah, I'm trying to, so that plane there that's one plane that goes on the first floor, where there's no inset for that porch or for that back door.
No, back door is flush with.
Okay. Yeah, I was trying to figure out, from that elevation, I couldn't tell if the window was going to be next to, the window next to the door was going to be in a trim piece or not, because it's so close to the column. And it looks like, you know, from that particular elevation, talking about windows, you have potentially the opportunity to align the windows on the top and the bottom. I know that you're dealing with two different types of space, a kitchen versus probably a bedroom. But one of the things that, as we discussed, we would want to have potentially that additional window, but focus on alignment, since the building is so small on the front. The front is such that, you know, you've got such symmetry there that some of these side elevations, although they're very tight, the windows don't have a particular order. They just follow the spaces.
Sure.
So I would suggest as you add windows that you consider the alignments and tighten up the alignments between the two.
Sure, I think in this particular instance, these are the two windows here on the
Right.
back of the elevation could be moved over to align with the two windows that are from this bedroom up here, which would give a little relief between the door and that first window
Yeah,
there.
I think that having, since it doesn't seem like there's too much of a conflict in either of those spaces, to pull the bottom ones over to the east and align them with the west ones would do a lot of favors to the building, especially since the front side is so symmetrical. The
Sure.
back side could have a lot of balance to it, and then the east and west sides, they kind of do what they need to do, but
Sure.
have a secondary kind of alignment. And in terms of, so we talked about the rear porch window. And did you address the notion of the landscaping around the mechanical unit, as Ron had mentioned?
For the condenser?
Yes.
Yes, we would be landscaping on two sides of that to conceal it from the Columbus Drive.
Okay. Okay, I don't have any further questions. You have the opportunity to discuss further any of the comments that you've heard thus far, but I think you've been addressing them as we've been going. So any other comments before we close the public hearing on this one?
No.
Okay. So we'll close the public hearing and discuss from my left.
No,
I wrote down 5 or 6 things per the discussion, but it looks like it's ready for a final.
Okay.
I agree for our discussion.
Okay. So, I was wondering where he went. Sat back down. We can put a motion forward then, as we move the case forward.
I'll make a motion. This would be final approval to grant a certificate of appropriateness for the drawings and documents presented at this public hearing in BLC 20-165 for the property located at 1718 East Columbus Drive. Because based upon the findings of fact, the proposed project is consistent with the Ybor City Design Guidelines of the City of Tampa for the following reasons: that its placement on the lot, its massing and scaling follow the pattern seen within the historic district. And this would be with the following conditions: that the applicant present a landscaping plan that addresses shielding the air conditioning compressor unit from the public view, that the applicant improve the alley as required per section 5 as discussed at the public hearing, that the applicant modify the roof line for the rear porch, that the applicant provide an additional window on the second floor along the east elevation, that the applicant align windows on the north elevation, and that a final color palette and material selection be submitted to staff.
Okay, we have a comprehensive motion with conditions.
Second?
And Mr. Chair, okay, you knew where I was going to ask.
We're going to go there.
Okay.
You've heard the motion with the conditions attached to it. Do you agree to the conditions that are put forth on the motion?
And Mr. Gibbons, can you please, I understand, I could hear you from all the way over there, but can you put your response on the record?
Yes, I'm in agreement with the conditions.
Okay, thank you. We have all of it that we need to proceed. So we've got a motion, we've got a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Commissioners. The next case we're going to evaluate this morning is BLC 20-166. This is for the address of 1216 East 15th Avenue. Currently, it's a vacant parcel attached to the YC2 zoning classification. This is for a duplex with site improvements. Once again, reviewing the Sanborn map. This is also an interior parcel indicated by the shaded green area. You see some period homes to the west. North is facing up. This is on 15th Avenue. And then the eastern street is 13th. That runs north and south. The abutting properties have a different orientation than the subject site. And there is an alley that runs east and west behind the property, and it's a 16-foot alley indicated on the Sanborn map. I always like to show the overhead. I think it's beneficial to get kind of the lay of the land. Once again, the property does face 15th Avenue, and that's to the south. To the east, you have 13th Street. Columbus Drive is to the north, and then you have the alley that I spoke about behind the subject site. These are the period structures that flank the subject site that he will be aligning to get the setbacks consistent with the historic fabric. And then also he'll talk about elevation from grade. So as we go through the photos, this is the subject site. Once again, the vehicular access will be off the rear, so the granite curbing will remain, the small parkway, the sidewalk, and then as you get into the property, this is behind the construction fence. Natural Resources did look at this, so the trees that are here have been reviewed and will be mitigated out if they're to be removed through the permitting process. This is the abutting contributing structure to the west. You see the setback that it currently has, and then the elevation from grade. This is looking at the subject properties to the east. I had talked about they have a different orientation, and you're looking at the side of obviously the structure there. Directly across the street, you have some more historic fabric to draw inspiration from. I think the street shots are very important to get a sense of place here. This is looking down 15th Avenue towards the east. Turning around, looking at this residential block. This is towards the west. And to conclude, once again, the alley is challenged in this area, but with the implementation of the new construction coming online here, the alley will be improved and will be a benefit for this particular block. That concludes the photo presentation, and Mr. Gibbons will address the board again.
Good morning again, Commissioners. Joe Gibbons, Gulf Bay Builders. I'm the applicant and builder of the project. This is the lot here, located at 1216 East 15th Avenue. It's 40 by 122, currently zoned YC2 with a future land use of R20. I did confirm with the city staff on July 29th that with the current YC2 zoning and the future R20, that the zoning allows 2.01 units on this lot. The lot will be accessed by this alleyway here. It is my intent to improve it from the sidewalk to the west edge of the property. Looking north on the lot is here. I have an arborist report that was submitted to the city for their review, and they concluded that the arborist report was concurrent with what they had inspected on as far as the trees. This is looking east. This is 17th. I'm sorry, 15th. This is looking west up to 14th. This is the structure at 1212 East 15th Avenue immediately to the west. It's confirmed that the finished floor elevation of this is at 36 inches, which we will match to this same finished floor elevation. This is the existing alleyway now, which will improve for section 5 of some documentation that I'll show from the sidewalk to the west edge of our property, and then we will improve the apron as well to allow access. Moving on to the site plan. The front of the structure will align with the structure at 1212 East 15th Avenue, which is approximately 17 feet from the back of the sidewalk from the right-of-way. We're proposing to have parking in the back that's going to be accessed from this improved alleyway. We only are required to have 2 parking spots. We have the room to provide a guest parking spot in addition to the 2 that are required, with a walkway that comes around on the east side of the property. One of the conditions was that we move the structure over so it's now perfectly centered on the property to allow for the 24-inch overhangs. We've put the condensers in the back so they're not visible from the 15th Avenue. And we do provide some green space here as well. From the previous photo that showed the alleyway in its current condition, and this is a document that was provided to us earlier this year from Transportation and Stormwater that reflects what we're entitled to do in an unimproved alleyway, which references section 5, which we will provide low potential for losses due to wind traffic and water erosions, be compacted and properly graded. And so it's our intent to improve that alleyway from the sidewalk to the west edge by clearing, grading, and then providing a road base. This is the arborist report that was submitted to the city in review of the trees that are on the property. And it was discussed during HDRC meeting that they would be removed because most of them are in not healthy condition, and so we will mitigate those with replacement. Moving on to the proposed elevation. It's a stacked duplex. This is access to the second floor unit. This is the first floor unit. I have presented this particular plan to the commission previously, and that's been built. We do have exposed rafter tails, 1x6 V-groove exposed soffit, barge rafters, 12-inch band boards that separate. This actually ends up being about a 24-inch here because of the depth of our porch. The porch depths are 8 foot. Because it's going to be a 36-inch finished floor elevation, we'll be required to have porch railings. And then, of course, they will match the porch railings up on the second floor. These are a 24-inch by 24-inch column that will wrap in a brick. Looking at another elevation, it gives a little more detail on the exposed rafter tails, barge rafters, the 1x6 V-groove, 1x8 fascia board. And it gives a little perspective looking down. Both ceilings will have the 1x6 V-groove ceiling treatment. Kind of shows the railings as they wrap around. In previous submittals, it was required that we do a railing separating the unit that goes upstairs from the unit downstairs. We use the GAF woodline timberline shingles. This kind of just gives it a aerial view. Shows the barge rafters here. A little bit more detail on the exposed rafter tails, the crown above the windows, the 6-inch artisan that we picture frame the window, as well as a historic sill. We will have a 36-inch finished floor elevation to match the structure to the west. This is the same product type that we just finished, that was presented to the board last year. It was finished earlier this year. This is at 1306 East Columbus. It just kind of goes into detail of the columns. This one had a little bit lower of a finished floor elevation. Will be at 36-inch. We continue these piers down the side as well as wrap around the back. It's a smooth stucco finish that will reflect the same as what we paint the body. That will be presented to staff prior or during the permitting process. On this particular unit, we're proposing to use a full glass entry door. This is the living area in the front, as well as the same entry door on the for the second floor unit. Shows a little bit of the crown, the sill, 6-inch artisan, the columns that we wrap in the brick, and then these end up being, these are 24 by 24, and these are 12 by 12. This shows the little railing to separate the two different units. Looking at it from the other angle, 6-inch artisan, the crown, the sill. This is the second floor unit that we finish off with the 36-inch railing. A little bit more detail on the columns upstairs that align with the columns downstairs. Shows how we wrap or continue the pillars around the side and in the back. Smooth stucco stem wall finish. We wrap all of the windows. Shows a little bit of the exposed rafter tails with the 1x6 V-groove soffit. This is the rear. We put the condensers in the back so they're not visible from the road. That concludes my presentation.
Good morning, Commissioners. Ron Vila, I'm staff with Historic Preservations. Staff's finding that this application is consistent with the Ybor City Design Guidelines. We had some conditions attached to this request. Those are to follow. Window placement on the left and right elevations, if we have additional discussion on that. Final color palette to be submitted to staff. And then there was one bullet item I just want to explain to you. Joe, if you could put the site plan on, please. Is that the structure was placed on the parcel a little closer to one property line, and it would not provide code compliancy with the overhangs. If you had the 24-inch overhangs, it would be too close to the property line. So when we get a request, we have many reviewers throughout the city review the project for compliance as it goes through the BLC and then through permitting. So one of the tweaks that he did is to move the structure over to the east slightly. So when he had the 24-inch overhang, he still maintained the 2-foot clear from the end of the overhang to the property line, and that's indicated on the site plan that is presented to you today. So that concern is eliminated with the placement of the structure that's in front of you this morning. That concludes my portion of this, and I'll be here to answer any questions.
Thanks, Ron. We have the opportunity for public comment on the case. Looks like we have a couple individuals that want to provide comment. I would note that they entered after the swear-in, so if we could get that out of the way, then we'll get to public comment.
Stand and raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you are providing this morning is the truth and nothing but the truth? I do.
All right, thank you.
Should I speak in this microphone or?
But whichever microphone.
Okay, hopefully you can hear me. I'll leave my mask on, except my eyes. So Kelly Grimsdale, I'm a resident at 2701 North 9th Street, here to speak on my own behalf. Couple concerns about this particular property is, and I just generally want to say this, I mean, we appreciate Joe Gibbons in our neighborhood, and he really has helped to improve it. And I know, or I don't know why it hasn't come up before, but it'd be great if he would be required to put historically appropriate screens on the properties, like the rest of us residents have to. That's just a comment. This particular property seems way out of scale with that lot and the surrounding properties. And I know the Sanborn map shows properties along that way. It doesn't show big 2 stories that will be towering over all the other properties. And between the property or the building, the structure itself, and then the parking at the back, it's almost filling that whole lot, whereas all the other properties are close to the street, and then there's green space in the back or sometimes an auxiliary structure. My concern is the parking. Right now, there's about half of the houses on that lot do not have driveways. No one is using that alleyway currently. And so, and then the way that these, the duplexes are built, there's no entrance or egress from the rear of the buildings. So you're gonna have this big building. Well, you have a very narrow alley. The people are gonna park at the back, supposedly, walk on this 3-foot wide sidewalk between a big wall of a building and the fence from the adjoining property to enter at the front. You know, that's realistically probably not going to happen. They're going to park at the front of the structure, and then that's going to infringe on all the other properties that currently, you know, the property owners that currently park on the street. So that would be one of my concerns. Also, the alleyway, the alleyway is not 16 feet. It might have been maybe years ago on the Sanborn maps. It is very, very narrow on the 13th Street end. I would ask that Joe would reference improving that alleyway. The brick, it's showing, I think, historically significant brick at the apron. It'd be nice if that could be maintained and improved, not removed. There's also some trees right at the opening of that alleyway. And it's a shame, and this was on the other plan as well, it's a shame that as a city of, the city of Tampa is considered a tree, you know, we're recognized for our tree canopy, and these trees have been in this alley for how many years? The palm trees at the start, I'm sure they're going to have to be removed, and it's just a shame that we just keep removing trees, when I wish there was a different design that would have been a more narrow property with a driveway alongside. And I know it's, you know, probably can't stop this, but I wish we cared more about the trees, because we just keep tearing the trees out. And again, so is that 30 seconds left, or?
That was the 3 minutes.
Yeah, okay. I mean, my concern is just the scale of this particular property on that street. It's like the biggest model that they have on the smallest lot possible, so I'd rather see something more to scale.
Thank you. Another public comment.
Thank you. My name is John Snook. I live at 1212 East 15th Avenue, right next door to the lot. While we also welcome the new construction, we have the same concerns that the building is too big for the small lot that it's on. Also with the alley, I noticed on one of the site maps that at least that end of it, and I verified that this morning with a tape measure, is 11 feet fence to fence. And then the trees and the one utility pole near the end decrease that. And yes, I would love to have the trees staying there too, but again, the parking is the main issue, because as Kelly said, with having to go around the house, would encourage people to park on the street more than it would in their parking spots. And 4 out of the 8 existing houses that face the street do not have driveways, and the people there do have to park on the street. It would cause more crowding problems and difficulty navigating the street as it is. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Seeing no more public comment, we can move to commissioners. I see Mr. Marsh is here. Is there any transportation that goes along with this? Since we've heard some alleys.
I'm available if you have any questions.
Okay.
I've talked with the applicant. The code states that there is a backup requirement, and they're allowed to use the platted width, which is often more generous than the actual width. The public comment about the trees is a common condition as more alleys are being used. The alleys which were underused are where the volunteer trees ended up, but that's really more of a natural resources question as to tree removal.
I have a question. There's been mention of the brick apron that the applicant says he's going to improve. It was also brought up by one of the public people who spoke. Is that a historic brick apron, and will it be retained and improved to meet the standards?
I don't have an opinion about the brick apron historically. I do know we can, you can use brick as an apron to code. It just requires a little more base and some other issues. I mean, we generally like a concrete apron because it's just easier to maintain and repair. But you can have a brick apron. It just needs to be finished a particular way.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Well, we can move on to commissioners' questions for the applicant, starting on my left.
I have no question.
Just a couple of questions. If you could readdress the brick apron and what your intention is, if you're going to be replacing what's there and with brick, and then also staff comments again address the window placement on both sides.
This is the existing brick apron approach, and it would be our intent to preserve this look. We believe there's enough brick here currently that we can, as Mr. Marshall mentioned, we would remove these brick and provide a new base material under the brick to the standard, so they would be preserved. But it would be our intent to keep the brick apron alley, or the apron. As well as there's a cracked sidewalk here, so it would be our intent to replace these two sections of sidewalk. And you can see there's a different scoring pattern here and there's a different scoring pattern here, so I'd work with staff to see how they would want this scored. Typically it's 3x3 or 5x5.
Great.
The window placements, Ron, can you refresh what side that you were?
Can you go to the east and the west, please? On your line drawings.
On this side and this side. I don't believe we can add any more on this would be the west side. On the east side, we could look at possibly adding, a couple more over here. These are bathrooms here, and then these are bedrooms here.
Yeah, could we see the floor plans? If you could slide the drawing down.
Yeah, thank you.
So that would be along this side and this side. The east side would be the stairwell, which we have a window here. We could add another window at the landing area up high. This is a bedroom here, and then the closets are back to back. So it looks like we could apparently probably add another window into this bedroom here. Maybe keep it down closer to the closet still to allow headboard space. And then the same thing on the west side. There's currently a window there in the bathroom, the kitchen, and then up here in the living room, we could add another window to the back bedroom here, probably closer to the closet to there again allow some space for a headboard.
Thank you.
Could you go over, so could we bring up the site plan, and could we talk about how the residents of this building will be parking in the back and walking towards the front, and just talk about that, so that alleyway space that they'll be using on that side of the lot? And then, so, what sort of lighting will be provided for the parking areas, and, I'm assuming there'll be some lighting provided on the side of the building for the residents to kind of walk along that paved area as well?
Correct. On this particular model, we provide dusk to dawn lights. There's 4 in the back and then 2 on each side. They're LED lights that are dusk to dawn that would light up this entire walkway. And then the 4 in the back would light up this entire area back here. And then there's 2 along this side. And then also on the front porches also have LED lights that are flush mount.
And then would there be some landscaping to screen the condenser unit in the rear as well?
Yes, we provide some viburnums around the 2 sides. We like to keep access in the front, but we provide viburnums on 2 sides.
Great. No further questions. Thank you.
In terms of what we've heard regarding the scale and massing of the project, this is a kind of a prototype that you've brought forward before with a little bit of tweaks to it, where we're not coming quite out the front. We have the porch. I'm sure you've done the research. We have the appropriate FAR. We have the appropriate setbacks. We have the appropriate heights.
Yes.
The height of the building?
Yeah, those were confirmed back with staff on July 29th.
Okay, so we don't have any busts there. Are there any other buildings in the neighborhood that are that scale, or is it, I'm trying to get an understanding of where kind of the scale and massing of this particular model that you have fits on that particular site?
Sure. To the east, there's an existing structure here that is actually one of our inspirations, and we actually built the building right next door to here. This is the site right behind the truck, and then there's this building, and then the one that's right next door.
Okay. In terms of this particular model, how many times have you had the opportunity to kind of repeat it in the district?
This would be the 4th and final time. After this, it's retired. We actually are working, we have a new plan that will be coming forward on some additional lots next year.
Okay. Well, with that, I would offer up that it looks in the first floor columns. I think we have an opportunity there to maybe make them a little bit bigger on this iteration, this final iteration, because I think that in order to differentiate and distinguish some of these units, sometimes you see, throughout the neighborhoods, Seminole Heights, and other historic neighborhoods like the Bayshore communities, you see different column spacings, especially in different column orders from first floor to second floor. And the photos that you show of the units that have been made, I think that the first floor columns are coming off a little bit out of scale to the rest of the building. And you said that they were 12 by 12. I think that you have the opportunity here on this one maybe to do 18 by 18 and then scale up. I would just leave that as a comment and let you work with staff on a way to differentiate these units, because we are seeing, as you said, this would be the fourth version of this particular style. So there's an opportunity there to make the last one a little bit different than the first ones. I was going to ask if there's a way to do a porch off of the back of the first floor in order to accommodate any type of access or entry into the building there, but it looks like you've got bedrooms that are just along that north side. don't know if there's any opportunity in terms of the pricing or the model that you're doing to do any French doors off of a bedroom, similar to the last project that we saw where we had a porch that came off there. That wouldn't necessarily solve the day-to-day entry, but it might alleviate some of the traffic back and forth depending on where you're going. And the parking that you have and the backup space that you have all is in compliance with what transportation requires in terms of the depth on the lot and
Correct.
the ability to get in and maneuver.
Yeah, we've actually, provided more than what is required for the backup space. We're not using any of the alleyway as part of our backup space. And that still gives us a generous amount of green space here between the parking and the building as well as on the east side.
Which way does the lot drain? To the north or to the south?
It currently drains to the north and then down the alley, which by improving the alley with the road base will help with the drainage.
Okay, I don't have any further questions. Thank you. Any rebuttal to any of the comments that you've heard thus far before we close the public hearing?
Just that, in some of the previous buildings, the tenants do utilize the parking, and as the commissioner had, questioned about the lighting. We have these things pretty well lit in the back and as well as along the side. We have even thought about on this particular one, because of the length of the sidewalk, in addition to the LED lights that are dusk to dawn on the building itself, of adding some landscape lighting along the pathway.
Thank you. So we'll close the public hearing and have the opportunity to discuss the case amongst the commissioners.
I have one comment about the overall massing. I tend to agree that although this meets the requirements in terms of the zoning and the placement, the scale does seem to be a little bit excessive for such a narrow site. It seems to me that the applicant has enough room towards the rear that they could probably squeeze in, make it thinner and longer and get the same amount of volume and square footage without creating a lot of problems, which would then satisfy how it fits in, the streetscape. Secondly, another strategy would be not to do the front porch all the way across. If the porch was more like an appendage in the front, that would break up the volume of the building. Those are comments. I don't know if we need to require them on this project. I'm pleased to hear that the applicant is developing new plans. You've developed a wonderful sort of pattern book for your projects in the neighborhood, but I think it is time to start, as you mentioned, start distinguishing a little bit between them, in particular with the railing design. Again, I won't address it for this particular project, but there's a rich variety of wooden rails that provide character at a different scale, and I can see as you do more of these projects, if there's just a slight variation of the decorative aspects of the railing. So that's my comments in terms of the scale of the building. I wouldn't mind seeing it become more slender and deeper, or maybe altering the porch, but we can leave that up for discussion. In terms of the front yard and the access, if you could put up the site plan. I would recommend not continuing the rear access sidewalk all the way to the front, because it starts to really encroach on the amount of green space in the front yard. And that's really you're not encouraging the public to go from the sidewalk to the back of the property. So perhaps I would suggest that you come across you already come across to meet the first, if you came across to meet the second unit access and then eliminate the sidewalk to the front, that would be more in keeping with the patterns we see with the neighborhood and would preserve the green space and begin to kind of zone what's public and what's private. And then I just agree with
That is you. That means it was a good comment.
and then I would agree with just adding some additional windows on the north and south elevation. And perhaps they don't need to be, I realize what you're trying to do is accommodate furniture placement from a practical point of view, but they could be smaller windows, and we can discuss them.
So I tend to agree with Jose's comments that he just issued, and I just wanted to address that. Of course, being in Tampa, we love our trees as well, but this is one of those situations where the applicant is improving the alley, and there's a balance we have to strike there. And given the concerns we've heard about parking as well, we want to make parking as pleasant as possible for this new project, especially if the massing and scale are to be what was presented here today. I think it would be nice if some of the massing was considered, but once again, kind of a comment, like if we were to reconsider the massing again as well, then the floor plan layout could almost completely change, and we can, kind of, it would be a completely new project, right, at that point. So those are sort of my overall comments.
Yeah, in getting back to the windows, I think that, that the windows along the west side, we have the opportunity to deal with the scale there. I mean, you've got bathroom, bedroom, and you could have small windows that go across that you could accommodate a headboard and have that pattern match along that facade and really kind of break it up. So there are opportunities to, identify what's going on behind the walls with the types of windows, but, kind of break up that massing. You have, we've heard the idea about maybe, stretching the unit, making it deeper. The challenge for the applicant would be that, that's a particular model that they have, and it's a certain number of square footage that is designed. The flip side of that, though, is you could potentially take the access to the first floor unit and mirror it to where you could take the porch and shrink it, so that the scale of the unit behind it is, it's the model, it is what it is, and the porch shrinks in instead of 3 bays to 2 bays, which makes your notion of bringing the walkway for the units around the front much more. I really like that idea, as presented with the project. But if you shrink the unit, if you shrink the porch from 3 bays to 2 bays, and reduce the scale on the front, then that makes even more sense, I think. So I think that given the size of the model itself and kind of the places where we can tweak it, if the porch becomes 2 bays and a different column structure, have the opportunity there to address some of the scale issues that, rather than having the 3-bay full-size project come to the front. Those are opportunities to solve a potential scale issue without really kind of taking the whole thing apart.
I would agree. Just modifying the porch for this particular project would be the path of least resistance in satisfying the scale issue.
Right. Yeah, because we might not get a chance to see this unit again, and if we're retiring it, maybe the porch changes to fit into the tighter environment.
Well, in that case, do you think I would agree that there's just some massaging of the porch feature of this duplex would benefit the project and its placement in the neighborhood. We could do a preliminary and have it see it again with a modified porch.
We could. I mean, these are things to explore in motion.
Yeah.
Sounds like we're ready for one.
Well, I also just want to say, we've been presented two projects today, and this is just an aside. We've been presented two projects today where we've seen that alley utilized for parking, which fits in the patterns of the historic neighborhood. It is a shame that sometimes we remove trees that aren't protected by our city codes, but they do provide adjacent properties to also utilize the alleys. And especially with these infill lots, I think it really, for me, it emphasizes the importance of keeping these alleys clear and viable, because it really does allow you to get the full benefit of the development potential within these interior lots. I'm just saying that to the board because we're seeing more and more of these projects, and I think that's a positive thing.
Agreed. Well, with that, was there any other conversation? Okay, so we have the opportunity then to craft a motion to address the project before us.
Could we open it up to see if,
Sure.
see if how he feels about perhaps modifying the front porch? Before
We'll open the public hearing back up so that we can, before we get a motion into effect, would it be possible for you to entertain those notions in this model?
Yes, as part of the design process of the new plan that we're developing right now is, hopefully this would address the issue today, is this unit would just have an entryway here. The new plan does not have the second floor deck. Basically, this unit is going to have a entry feature that will stop below this window, and then the same thing over here that's going to stop below. This will now become a window, kind of matching that window. So the two doors are here. This window comes over here, and then these windows, remain stacked. And then this is an entry feature here, and then this is an entry feature here with, still would have the 8-foot depth, but now we just have, as the Commissioner stated, I guess, mirrored entry features as opposed to the 3 bays. It now only has 2 bays and eliminates the second floor.
Right. Well, I guess what I was suggesting is that on the first floor, you take the first floor unit access and you put it in the middle, in the mid bay, and then you take the window and put it to the outboard. I don't know if you can accommodate that in your plan, but the two accesses to the units would be on the 2 bays that are to the east of the unit. And your porch, you would have 2 entry stoops, 2 entry doors, and then a second floor porch that could be available for the second floor unit. I mean, I know that the porch is part of the features that you're offering the potential residents. So I'm not suggesting necessarily that we take that away. It's just that we could potentially scale this version down to where it's just 2 bays, and you end up with a 2-bay skinnier looking scaled version of it.
So basically just reversing these 2 windows come over here and this door comes over here.
I mean, you'd take that configuration on the first and the second floor, you'd flip it to where your access into the first floor and from the second floor to the porch was now in the mid bay, and then you scale back the porch to where the 8-foot depth is the first 2 bays, and then we have a little bit of breathing room between the next property, and you'd have the opportunity for big windows and other landscape elements there to kind of bring down the scale.
Sure.
So that we aren't, the full width of the building all the way through to.
But this bay completely.
Yeah, you just you take it off and then scale it down. So, but the question, since we have the hearing open again, would be, is that something that you would be willing to hear as part of a motion? Is it something that sets you back too far?
No, I actually kind of like that because now, so this door is coming over here, or these 2 doors are just coming over here,
Flip
and
it.
then that would introduce you know, maybe a different configuration of the windows or something. And then this part gets, you know, recessed back in. So this no longer is 8 feet deep, it's only, you know, from this column over to this column is the 8-foot depth.
Yeah, that's the porch. And then the building gets tight back on that the west corner as it turns around. So you get a little bit of the relief there that we're talking about in terms of scale and massing. The overall floor plan and the product that you're selling doesn't change, but the kind of its presence on the street goes from 3, you know, it's reduced by 30% down to a 2-bay and the same height, which makes it look, you know, taller and skinnier than it actually is.
Well, and then it also introduces a secondary gable
Yeah.
over the porches.
Yeah, so I mean, you would need to work the roof out there, but I would be comfortable, you know, potentially even delegating that to staff. We would have, that would be my opinion, but we could see where the motion would go. We just want to open it back up so that we don't, because we have to ask you after we make the motion and everybody agrees to it, do you accept? And if you said no, then we're back to here. So, does all that sound good so far?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's something that I can get drafted up, and maybe present to Ron first, you know, before we go to full documentation. And
Right,
make sure that,
right. I mean, but from a technical aspect, you're re-engineering, you're recalibrating a porch, not a whole
Right.
unit, which is easier to do.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And just before you close the public hearing, Kamaria Pettis-Mackel from the City Attorney's Office. Mr. Gibbons, do you have any rebuttal to what was just asked, or do you have anything that you want to provide on the record?
No, I
Okay,
embrace the idea.
okay,
I better close it then.
yeah.
Okay, so we have the opportunity now to, I think, craft a motion that has a good chance of going forward, so I'll let somebody do that.
Do you think we do with the final and let staff, or do we want to see the modified porch again?
I'm comfortable with setting it to 2 bays and working with staff on what the appropriate, you know, massing and scale of the roof is. It's a porch, you know, we're not asking for the whole thing to be redesigned. And we can throw in there also the windows too, so I'm comfortable with it. I mean, the applicant has indicated that they're comfortable from going from 3 bays to 2, and then the rest of it's just kind of a scale and massing and technical aspect. And so I think that Ron and Dennis have enough precedents to look at to guide the project to success. That's my opinion.
I would agree, especially since the applicant has had a experienced track record in the neighborhood and working with staff on our modifications and suggestions. Do you want me to craft a motion, or does somebody else want to? Go for it.
And before you craft your motion, I would just urge you to be as specific as possible so that staff in the department will have the exact guidelines and the directions that you would like them to focus on. So just please be as specific as possible.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. And that is important since we're going to go for a final with conditions. And this would be moved to grant a certificate of appropriateness for the drawings and documents presented at this public hearing in BLC 20-166 for the property located at 1216 East 15th Avenue. Based upon the findings of the fact, the proposed project with the conditions would be consistent with the Ybor City Design Guidelines in terms of its placement on the lot, scale, and materials. And this would be for a final approval with the following conditions: that the applicant repair and modify the existing brick apron at the alley, that the applicant modify the concrete sidewalk access as discussed at the front of the property as discussed at the public hearing, that the applicant modify windows on both the first and the second floor on the north and south sides as discussed at the public hearing, that the applicant modify the project and the drawings and present to staff a reduction from a 3-bay front porch to a 2-bay front porch, which would alter the entry to the units and their appropriate stoops, and reduce the size of the first and second floor porches. And that the applicant also look at modifying the first floor columns to provide a more substantial design on the lower level. And that the applicant provide a final color palette and material palette to staff for their approval.
We have a motion with conditions.
Second?
We have a second. This is the part where I ask you if you concur with what the motion and recommendations and conditions are.
Yes, just one quick question on the first floor columns. Are you wanting those reduced?
No, I think the discussion that we had was actually to beef them up a little bit,
Okay.
so that they're a little bit more substantial on the first floor and can perhaps become a little lighter on the second floor.
Yeah, and I would add a footnote to that, and maybe we can modify it to say that that was based upon a 3-bay porch, and so maybe a 2-bay porch is more appropriate to have it be tall and skinny, and we can defer any of the column aesthetic that we've discussed to be reviewed in conjunction with the reduction in bay size, because that would affect the proportions there, so.
Yeah, that's a good point. The comment was more based on the larger.
Yeah.
So we'll leave it up to you and staff to find an appropriate solution.
Okay. So we have a motion with conditions. We have a second. Do you understand and agree?
Agreed, yes.
Okay, awesome. So, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No? You're approved. We have continued our last one, so we will close the public hearing and see you next time. Thanks.